She didn't expect the world to go quiet so quickly, yet somehow, the silence had followed her everywhere, long before she ever lost her hearing. People had muted her existence long before sound ever did, and as Mia stood at the bus stop that cold winter evening, clutching her sketchbook like a fragile piece of her soul, she wondered if she would ever meet someone who saw her as more than the girl who couldn't hear. Someone who didn't pity her. Someone who didn't stare at her lips before awkwardly looking away. Someone who didn't treat her silence like a burden. Snowflakes drifted down lazily around her, glowing under the amber streetlights, but she barely saw them. All she could feel was the sting of what had just happened, the rejection, the forced smile, the apologetic shrug from the man she'd dared to like. He'd been kind at first, charming even, but when she typed out her question asking if he minded communicating a bit slower or through text, his expression had tightened. "This won't work," he'd said, not cruelly, but dismissively, as if dismissing a possibility was easier than learning something new. He had walked away before she could react, before she could tell him she could read lips, speak softly, gesture clearly. Before she could tell him she had learned to rebuild her world piece by piece since losing her hearing at 16. Before she could explain that silence did not make her fragile, it had made her strong. But she didn't chase him. She never chased anyone anymore. So she simply stood there, the icy wind brushing her cheeks red, her breath forming faint clouds, her heart aching in that old, familiar way. The buses rumbled by, people came and went, and Mia stayed still, until a soft tug at the corner of her coat made her look down. A little girl stood beside her. 5, maybe 6 years old. Bright-eyed, wearing a pink jacket zipped up to her chin. Her mittened hands were small, fumbling, but surprisingly deliberate. The girl raised her hands, and signed. "Are you okay?" Mia blinked rapidly. Not many children knew sign language. Not many adults did either. She knelt, her boots crunching in the snow, and signed back with a gentle smile. "Yes, just a little sad." The girl stared at her for a moment, then stepped forward and wrapped her small arms around Mia's neck. Mia froze, not in discomfort, but in disbelief. The girl's warmth felt like something she hadn't known she needed. When the girl pulled back, she pointed behind Mia. That was the first time Mia saw him. The man standing near the stop was tall, bundled in a dark winter coat, his hands buried in his pockets, his shoulders carrying the tired posture of a single parent. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd rushed out of the house. His eyes, warm, quiet brown, were watching them both. Not with concern, not with hesitation, but with understanding. He walked over slowly, the child running to him and hugging his leg. He smoothed her hair, then turned to Mia. His lips moved gently as he spoke, careful and clear. "Hi, I'm Daniel, and that's my daughter, Lily." Mia read his lips effortlessly. She smiled faintly, nodded, then pulled out her small notepad to write, the same way she always did with strangers. "Nice to meet you." But when she lifted her head, Daniel wasn't looking at the notepad. He was raising his hands. Slowly, fluidly, beautifully, he signed back. "Nice to meet you too." Her heart skipped. She signed, surprised. "You know sign language." He nodded. Lily tugged at his coat excitedly. "She taught me," he signed, pointing at his daughter. Then added, "I learned so I could talk to her mother." His hands slowed. The movement softened. "She passed away last year." Mia's breath hitched, a sympathetic ache rising in her chest. She had known loss too, in a different form. She looked at Lily, this bright little girl who had learned sign language not because she had to, but because her parents had built a world that needed it. Lily suddenly signed again. "Dad likes your drawings." Mia blinked in confusion. She looked at Daniel. He immediately shook his head, embarrassed. I wasn't staring. She was just curious what you were drawing earlier." He rubbed his neck awkwardly, then added in sign. "You're very good." Heat rose to Mia's cheeks. She wasn't used to compliments. She wasn't used to people who communicated without making her feel like she needed to apologize for existing. A bus approached. Daniel checked the number, but Mia stood still. It wasn't hers. She wasn't ready to say goodbye. Lily tugged her mitten off and reached for Mia's hand. "Come with us." Daniel cleared his throat. "She means, if you're not in a hurry, you can join us for hot chocolate. It's her favorite part of winter." He signed every word as he spoke. He didn't have to, but he did. Mia swallowed hard. The night felt warmer somehow. She nodded, and that single nod became the beginning of everything. Dash dash dash. They walked together down the snowy path, Lily bounding ahead like she owned the world and her father following with the patient smile of a man who'd learned to navigate life one careful step at a time. Mia kept close enough to see Daniel's lips but far enough to hide the nervous fluttering inside her chest. People rarely tried to talk to her. Most gave polite smiles when she pointed to her ears, then quickly drifted away. But Daniel wasn't drifting anywhere. He walked beside her, matched her steps, kept his head turned slightly so she could read his lips if she needed. He didn't pity her, he adapted to her, and that made all the difference. Inside the cafe, the warm lights brushed everything gold. The windows fogged with every exhale. People chatted, laughed, tapped keyboards, soundless rhythms that Mia could only imagine, but she liked imagining them. Daniel ordered using both voice and signs so Lily could follow. When he turned to Mia, he signed again. Hot chocolate, or tea. His signs were imperfect, slightly slow, sometimes a little wobbly, but she understood them effortlessly. Hot chocolate, she wrote in her notepad. He smiled. Good choice. They took a corner booth. Lily sat by the window, tracing shapes in the condensation. Mia sat across from Daniel, who looked more at ease than she expected a single parent to look with a stranger. He folded his hands on the table. You've had a difficult day. She sighed, nodded. Someone rejected me, because I'm deaf. Daniel's expression softened into something she had seen very few times in her life, genuine empathy, not pity. He signed slowly. People fear what they don't understand. She stared at him, surprised by the weight of his words. He continued, but their fear doesn't define your worth. Her lips parted, her fingers tightened around her warm cup. She wasn't used to people defending her, especially not after knowing her for only an hour. He pointed gently to her sketchbook. May I see? She hesitated, then slid it across the table. Page by page, Daniel turned through her drawings, portraits, cityscapes, moments captured in pencil and ink. He paused on one of her favorites, a drawing of two hands reaching for each other in sign language. He smiled. Beautiful. No one had ever called her work beautiful the way he just did, with sincerity instead of courtesy. Lily climbed onto the booth seat beside Mia and watched the drawings with wide-eyed wonder. Draw me, she signed eagerly. Mia laughed silently, nodded, and pulled out her pencil. As she sketched the child's bright eyes and round cheeks, Daniel watched with a softness Mia didn't recognize. At first, it wasn't admiration, it wasn't curiosity, it was peace. A peace he probably hadn't felt in a long time. When she finished, Lily squealed happily and hugged her again. Daniel looked at the portrait and signed. You captured her perfectly. Mia's chest warmed. She's easy to draw. Lily beamed proudly. When they finally stepped back into the winter night, the snow had thickened. Cars passed in slow motion, their headlights glowing through the haze. Mia expected the warmth to fade as soon as they left the cafe. She was wrong. It followed them all the way back to the bus stop. Over the next week, Mia found herself returning to that bus stop at the same time. She didn't know why. She told herself it was coincidence. That she needed fresh air. That she liked the quiet. But deep down, she knew she was hoping to see them again. And she did, every single day. Sometimes Daniel brought hot chocolate. Sometimes Lily brought a new sign she'd learned. Sometimes they didn't bring anything at all, and those were Mia's favorite days, because they didn't need anything to feel like something. Daniel was gentle, steady, healing in a way that didn't frighten her. He never rushed her, never made her feel like she needed to speak more clearly, never looked impatient when she struggled to read his lips. He simply stayed, and Mia found herself opening up, not in words, but in trust. One evening, as they walked Lily home from the park, the wind picked up. Mia shivered. Daniel noticed instantly and wordlessly draped his scarf around her neck. She touched it lightly. You didn't have to. He signed. I wanted to. Her heartbeat stuttered. For the first time in years, someone wanted to take care of her, not because they pitied her, but because they cared. Because they saw her. But Mia still held back. She couldn't help it. Rejection had carved scars too deep to ignore. Daniel sensed it too. One day, as they sat on a bench while Lily made a snowman, he signed something she wasn't prepared for. Do you like me? Her breath caught. She looked at him, stunned. His expression didn't waver. It's okay if the answer is no. She swallowed hard. It's not no. Then what is it? Her hands trembled slightly. I'm scared. He leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. I'm scared too. She blinked. You. He nodded. I lost someone I loved. I didn't think I'd feel anything again. His hands paused, then continued. But I do. With you. Her heart melted. Slowly, painfully, beautifully. A tear